Mace here. Hit like and subscribe.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome, East Caleb, Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, and we're loaded up today. It is football time in Tennessee as the Vols wrap up their first week of camp. First injury that we'll have to discuss as the Vols rebuilt secondary takes a hit. Also, Tennessee adds a monstrous recruit, and why he may be even as big as Nico Maleava and possibly bigger. We'll discuss that this day in Tennessee sports history. The stat of the day as well. Colorado has some of the worst infighting I've ever heard of. One player said it was analogous to a Grand Theft Auto game, said their locker room was like that. Constant fights going on. That wasn't the case when Al Wilson visited with the Vols, so we'll talk about that as well. What kind of impact can he have? Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing today, Dave?
Never better. I want to go ahead and get it set up. It is today's tough question, and that is right now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All righty. Today's tough question is brought to you by one of Hook's Hangouts, and that is our good friends at Asia Cafe. It is Asian cuisine that you just can't get anywhere else. We're talking about secret family recipes held for hundreds of years. Great, fantastic coffee as well. Check them out. There's the QR code. Again, one of Hook's Hangouts, Asia Cafe. We absolutely love that. Thank you, Philip Lim. All right, Caleb. Today's tough question is a little bit outside the norm, and then we're going to get into Tennessee picking up the number one quarterback in the class of 2026. But first, I want to ask you, we have the Olympics going on. We are I would say, a college football show. So would you rather win the 100 meters in the Olympics, be the heavyweight champ, or win the Heisman Trophy? I ask this knowing that a lot of Tennessee fans are anti-Heisman Trophy. I'm going to argue first that it should definitely be the Heisman Trophy because the 100 meters, somebody's going to beat it eventually. The heavyweight champ that whole sport is so mired in patheticness and greed and mediocrity and all kinds of bad stuff. The Heisman Trophy has a little bit of purity to it. So it would be the Heisman for me. Am I crazy?
No, it'd be the Heisman for me too. I'd much rather win the Heisman. And I say that as somebody who doesn't consider the Heisman that valuable. But I would still rather win the Heisman. A lot of now, particularly this. In the age of NIL, Dave, in America, what do you think is going to get you more endorsement deals? Winning the Heisman or winning the 100-meter relay in the Olympics? I don't think it's close.
Well, I think the 100 meters, though, if you're a Usain Bolt superstar, I mean, that you win the 100 meters and you're not as commercially viable as Nico Maleava, and he's just one of the quarterbacks in college football.
That's my point. Yeah. So where do you think you would? Justin Gatlin, for a minute, was clocked in the fastest man in the world. Was it 2001, right? 2002
yes.
Was or maybe 04 Olympics. Do you think Justin Gatlin could make, and you could get endorsement deals back in that time? Do you think he made more or less than what the Heisman winner of this upcoming year is going to make from endorsement deals?
Gosh, I would have so much. That would be so difficult to factor. Because,
I don't think it's close.
Well, I mean, like I said, if you have a Usain Bolt who destroys everybody and is tall, lanky, good-looking athlete, he's going to make a lot of endorsement money, right? But if you have whoever won it over the weekend, I can barely remember his name. He's not going to make any endorsement money. Let's change gears a little bit to what the H is Tennessee killing it in recruiting?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Keep cool.
a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
With the addition of Faizon Brandon, the number one quarterback in the 2026 class, Josh Heupel has proven that he is a great recruiter. Not good, but great. Tell me I'm wrong, Caleb.
So just to add this out, because I want to make sure people who weren't paying attention over the weekend, Tennessee added Faizon Brandon, the number one prospect on 247 for 2026 at quarterback over the weekend. He's the number 3 ranked quarterback in 247 Sports Composite. So a little bit debatable, but either way, huge pickup. Josh Heupel is a great recruiter at certain positions, but not because of his recruiting ability, because of his coaching, because of the system he runs. Josh Heupel is a desirable place for any quarterback in the country to go to. He's going to have his pick of the litter at that position for a long time. The same way Lincoln Riley has had his pick of the litter at that position for a long time. So I think in that regard, Josh Heupel Josh Heupel's system as a coach makes him a great recruiter. I've told you guys there's 3 positions where Tennessee's not like Alabama under Nick Saban, where literally everywhere on the field players would take a discount to go play for Nick Saban. Josh Heupel, there's not a Heupel discount at every position, but there is at 3 positions specifically: quarterback, wide receiver, and edge rusher. Players will take less money to go play in Josh Heupel's system at those 3 positions because they know he will make them look great, which will help their NIL and also help their NFL draft standing. So it's totally worth it for Faizon Brandon to go to Tennessee, but that does not lessen the impact of this pickup. Faizon Brandon is a huge pickup for Tennessee and sets them up at quarterback. We can say this safely. They're not going to have any concerns at quarterback for the next 7 years.
No, I think that's very safe. As a matter of fact, I think that's almost conservative. I think Josh Heupel is a great recruiter. You gave me 3 positions he's a great recruiter in, right? I'm going to add another one, and I think that will solidify my argument that he's a great recruiter. And I realize that most of you are just hoping for good recruiter, right, Caleb? That
Correct.
Most people are hoping that Josh Heupel is a good recruiter and a great coach. We've seen he's a great coach. You're just hoping for good recruiter. Well, I'm here to tell you he can be a great recruiter, and I said that last week. I'm going to tell you why I still believe that, because I think there's another position that Josh Heupel will have an advantage over other coaches in recruiting, as the program represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, play to win. I'll tell you what that position is in 30 seconds. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, so you're giving me quarterback, wide receiver, edge rusher. I'm going to take another position that I think Tennessee has an advantage over other coaches because of what they've done under Josh Heupel, and that's offensive tackle. Darnell Wright, what they turned him into. And I'll take it a step further, offensive line. Cooper Mays was undersized. I think that when you talk about when you talk about Tennessee's ability to recruit the top positions, it's always going to be quarterback. It's always going to be Faizon when we talk about those positions. But here's the great part about that position, Caleb. That position can bring in more players, especially from a place like Carolina that we've talked about being important for Tennessee recruiting.
So I can't say yet that there's proof that players or offensive linemen are taking discounts to go play for Josh Heupel. I just haven't seen that. That doesn't mean they're not getting great offensive linemen. I think they are, but I haven't seen anything to suggest that offensive linemen are getting offered put it this way. I don't think Georgia can come in and offer an offensive lineman more money and Tennessee still get that offensive lineman because that lineman says, I want to go play for Tennessee.
I'm not even saying a discount necessarily. I'm just saying a yes. If Georgia and Tennessee offer the same thing, that they're on a level playing field, I believe that. Would you disagree with that?
I would totally disagree with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think there are enough offensive linemen in the South, whereas yes, they could lose a battle for a 4 or 5 star, but they could as easily win a battle for a 4 or 5 star to go to Georgia. Okay, listen, I think, and let's not look at this through a periscope. Okay, Georgia's got their issues, right? I mean, if I'm a parent, I'm very concerned about them going there, so I'm factoring that into my stance as well.
That's fair. And I think Tennessee could get some. I don't think they're level with Georgia. I think they can get good offensive linemen. I still don't think they're level with Georgia yet. Someone brought up on the message board, and I'm trying to confirm if this is true right now as we speak, but that Faizon Brandon is actually from the same hometown, Davis Hendon Hooker. And he is. They're both from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yep.
Do you think that played a role?
I think it played a significant role. And I looked at the Carolinas and especially South Carolina right now, it appears as if Clemson is having a bit of a renaissance in recruiting in that class and in this class. However, the big one's going to be David Sanders. If David Sanders from Carolina ends up at Tennessee, you have to look at Faizon and think that was a factor, right?
Yes, I think so. The same way it was for George McIntyre getting a lot of in-state guys too, with the way he's been recruiting. I think David Sanders could be. I think George McIntyre could be the guy that gets David Sanders, though. Either way, I mean, maybe this is a topic for another day, but the real question becomes: assuming Merklinger and Taven Jackson Taven Jackson already transferred. Sorry, assuming Merklinger is the odd man out, who would you put your money on to succeed Nico Iamaleava at this point, Dave? In 2026, Faizon Brandon or George McIntyre? That's going to be a competition.
I'm going to go with the traditional thinking, and I'm going to go with Merklinger.
Really?
Yeah, because I think he'll have time in the system. Now, if he transfers after the season, it means that he doesn't feel like he can fit, and he could slip. So I'll take the guy who's in-house first. That's the safe bet. I realize it's always a safe bet to go to Medicare Misty Insurance. You need options to choose from, agents you can trust, and Medicare Misty does not charge you. No charges for her services. She makes sure you have the best Medicare plan for you and your family. The Vols without a potential starter out for the season. Up next with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, back in 30 seconds.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All righty, here we go. So you knew this was going to happen. It happens in every camp, right, Caleb? A player gets injured and is out for the season. And you hate to say it, but we'll get to Jourdan Thomas here in a second. First, though, with the quarterback that Tennessee has picked up, and now you add to it McIntyre, you add Nico to that, what they've done with Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton. Is Tennessee quarterback U? Wherever Lincoln Riley was, that was quarterback U for a few years, right? And now, because of his defense, ironically, it seems like that slipped a little bit. So is Josh Heupel quarterback coach? Is Tennessee quarterback U? who's second if Tennessee's number one? Because right now it appears as if they're getting their pick of the litter.
I think Tennessee. Well, let's break down why Tennessee's quarterback you. Because if you were investing, and by the way, today's not a good day to invest, guys, but if you were investing, or maybe it is a good day to invest because things are falling and you can get things at a cheap price.
That's actually true.
So today is a good day to invest. So anyways, if you were investing and quarterback you was a stock, Tennessee's where you invest because all the foundational groundwork is there for Tennessee to explode as quarterback you. It just hasn't surfaced yet. And here's what I mean by that. Tennessee has a generational quarterback who is about to start the season and about to be, in my opinion, the best quarterback in college football for the next 2 years. I don't know if you agree with me, Dave, but I think that Tennessee is about to be have the best quarterback in college football far and away. I don't think it's close.
I think they'll have one of the top 5 quarterbacks. Maybe.
I think it's a disappointment. I think Nico Iamaleava will be. I think Nico Iamaleava will be better than Carson Beck by the end of the year.
Gosh, I tend to agree with that.
So there's that.
Go ahead.
They already had a quarterback 2 years ago who was generationally great in Hendon Hooker. You're right. They have George McIntyre for 2025, Faizon Brandon for 2026. As we're discussing all of this, the same week Faizon Brandon commits to Tennessee, what happened in the NFL? Joe Milton started beating out Drake May at the Pats training camp. And now Joe Milton may be the favorite to start over the Pats' number 2 pick in the NFL because of how epic and elite he's been to this point. That's impressive, Dave. I just got to be honest. That's impressive. So when you factor in Joe Milton, when you factor in Hendon Hooker still with the Lions in the NFL, when you factor in Nico Iamaleava, when you factor in what's coming down the pipe, 2030 is going to come. 2030 is going to come. And I'm willing to bet Tennessee's had a Heisman winner, 2 All-Americans, maybe 3, and 5 starters in the NFL at quarterback by that point from Josh Heupel.
I think that's the next step. If you want to be quarterback you've got to prove it in the NFL level, right? You can't just have a bunch of good quarterbacks in college. You've got to have some guys have success at the NFL. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use that promo code HOOKED for 10% off. I mean, that's ultimately the thing, because here's what you don't want. And you may be a little bit too young to remember this, but do you remember Jeff Tedford?
Yep.
Okay. Jeff Tedford had a reputation, which you may be a little young to remember, of his quarterbacks just tanked in the NFL. They absolutely tanked. They were awful. And I don't remember all the names because I'm a little bit too young. I'm a little bit too young to remember. But
I remember Nate Longshore.
Okay, there you go. But you also remember Aaron Rodgers. Well, he fell in the draft to the 20 or so position because of Jeff Tedford. So that's the thing you don't want. I mean, that's the only potential backfire is if these quarterbacks don't have success in the NFL. But I'll tell you this, based off character alone, Hendon Hooker will at least have Josh Dobbs-like success, which is hang out, get your occasional starting chance. He will at least be that type of guy. And that, to me, is something to hang your hat on. Listen, Tyler Bray is making about, what, $1.8 million? Nobody's crying for him. So, listen, if you can hang your hat on a Hendon Hooker that's having success, any success in the NFL, that's a good start for Josh Heupel.
Thoroughly agree. Totally agree. And that's a huge win. And I'm thinking of the guys that Jeff Tedford had get drafted because it was kind of funny because I just realized that Kyle Bowler was one of his prize draft picks. Now, the difference is this. The NFL is a lot more different now. They've hired a lot more offensive coordinators. Back in those days, Dave, and you remember, and even as into the early 2000s, they still loved coaches that built their teams around their defense. And so they would find a quarterback and just throw him to the wolves and say, hey, go manage the game for us. Whereas nowadays, there are a lot more Packer-style teams willing to develop quarterbacks after they go to the NFL. So they may not be ready. I think there is. I think there are. I think a lot of coaches are willing to develop quarterbacks. Look, Bobby Petrino never had an NFL caliber quarterback until Lamar Jackson. Now, I think Lamar Jackson is massively overrated, but I do think he's worked out in the NFL because Baltimore has tailored everything to kind of work around him. Whereas, remember this, Dave? Remember Michael Vick in Atlanta? They tried to force the West Coast offense on him, which is still one of the dumbest things anyone's ever thought would work. And, they tried to force him into the West Coast offense because they're like, that's the NFL offense. Nobody would think to do that with Michael Vick today if he were coming out right now.
No, he'd be a phenom because all these athletic quarterbacks that are running around now aren't as athletic as him. He was one of the craziest athletes. He's not there. To me, there's Bo, there's Deion, and then there's a level of a bunch of Mike Vicks. That's kind of how I see the greatest natural athletes. I'm curious. I'll just ask you, how do you see the greatest natural athletes?
I could agree with that. I think Deion is the most freakish, greatest natural athlete at quarterback. It was just, to this day, we still haven't seen anybody with his elusiveness was just as good as his straight line speed. And that was what was so underrated about him at quarterback during that time.
I want to ask one more question about this quarterback U and if Tennessee's quarterback U. So when we go back and look at Tennessee's quarterback U, what will be the most significant pickup of the 4 quarterbacks that we have discussed?
5, you mean? Don't forget Hendon, Joe, Nico, Faizon, and George.
Well, no, I was just discussing the guys that haven't really played yet, like Nico, Faizon, Merklinger, and George.
It's Nico. It's going to be Nico. It's going to be Nico.
I can't argue with that, but is Faizon second?
Well, if you think George McIntyre is going to beat out Faizon, you would have him third.
I'm asking you.
I think Faison's third because I'm with you. I think George McIntyre is going to win the job. I think Nico is number one because one, he was the first, the NIL money, what he represented, but also I think he's just the best of them. Look, I saw highlights of Faizon, and the truth of the matter is, Dave, Faizon, he's going to be the best red zone quarterback Tennessee ever has if he stays. What I mean by that is if you look at his passes, he's very accurate in the red zone, which is something that Heupel doesn't really value too much, honestly. But it's definitely an important trait if you're moving the ball. He probably is more accurate in the red zone than Nico, but he does not have the deep ball Nico has. I mean, again, guys, Nico, you will see this. He has the prettiest deep ball that of any quarterback Tennessee's ever had. And I'm going to say I'm already willing to say he's got a better deep ball than T. Martin or Heath Schuler had.
Wow. I can't go with you on Heath. I'll go back and look again, but
no, you're right. Maybe I'm a little young for Heath. But Heath was probably more athletic. I would have said Heath was more athletic. But when you say Heath moved the ball more over the middle of the field, right? We should have him on and ask him about that.
Yeah, we will. Today's tough question. Would you rather win the Heisman Trophy, gets 50%, win the 100 meters in the Olympics, 31%, be heavyweight champ, gets 18%. So the Heisman Trophy still wins. That's pretty incredible. I'm impressed. All right, so I asked this question. Tennessee's best recruiting pickup has been Nico or everyone else? Who do you think's winning?
Nico. Nico is going to be the greatest recruiting pickup in the history of Tennessee football.
Everybody else? You're talking about a lot of other players.
Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning.
Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning. You're willing to stand by that and go with that.
I'm going on that leg. Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning. When you were the one who taught me about how like Heath Schuler actually was a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning, and you were right because there is no Peyton Manning without Heath Schuler. Yep. There's no line of quarterbacks without getting Nico. Nico is going to be better than all of them. And put it this way, let's talk Clemson real quick. Take out the character. I understand, and I'm not here to defend him. I'm just saying on the field and the impact on the program. Deshaun Watson is a bigger deal for Clemson history than Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yes.
And he was a better player, right?
Yes, definitely.
Nico is going to be... John agreed with us last week, Dave. You got to get on board. Nico with Josh Heupel is better than Peyton with David Cutcliffe in college.
We'll see. The rules benefit your argument a lot. You got to give me that. I mean,
yes. Now, I will say
if we're playing to 11, you got to spot me like three 5 points or something, because the rules help you a lot.
No, they do. No, I will say, if you put Heath in this system, Heath actually might be better, because even though his deep ball is not as pretty as Nico, he actually does a lot of other things better. Even if he may not have the same deep ball, but like, I think he actually may be the more perfect fit for Heupel's system, but we'll never know. That was 30 years ago. So
this day in Tennessee football history. What have we got today, Caleb? This day in Tennessee football history is brought to you by our good friend Don Self. Don Self at State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they've built their business on taking care of their customers, the greater Chattanooga area. Call Don at 423-396-2126, or just go to donself.net, right below donself.net. What's this day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb?
let's go back 7 years ago, because we were just talking about him. Wasn't in the Olympics. It was the year after the Olympics. But in his final race, in the final race he ever ran at the London World Athletic Championship Games in 2017, Usain Bolt came in third in the 100-meter final. And 2 former Vols finished ahead of him.
Justin Gatlin and who?
And Christian Coleman. And Justin Gatlin was number 1, by the way. And I do believe at that time, Justin Gatlin would have been in his 30s at this point.
Would you, if you don't hit the like button for that, if you don't love the knowledge that Caleb's bringing, I don't know what to tell you. That's pretty strong. 2 Vols beat Usain Bolt
in his final race ever.
In his final race, did he go one too many? If I'm a 100-meter guy, I don't ever want to lose. I want to leave on a world record.
Wait, not only think about this. Justin Gatlin was 35. Usain Bolt was 31. Justin Gatlin should not have won. Now, here's what I watched. So remember, Justin Gatlin barely lost to Usain Bolt in the 2016 Olympics. Bolt had won gold and Gatlin got silver. Gatlin's not faster than Usain Bolt. Here's what was happening.
We don't know. Well, we don't know. Gatlin on gear or not on gear?
He wasn't on gear with this one. But here's the truth with Gatlin. This is actually where coaching comes into play. Fundamentals. I'm actually going to do some X's and O's for track and field for a minute. How you jump at the start of the race is half the battle with winning it, right? And
it's huge on the 40. You're supposed to, your first 2 strides are supposed to feel like you're almost going to fall down. They're supposed to be so long.
Gatlin has the best jump of the start of anybody in racing, and he is very good.
Where else can you get track and field breakdown other than Off the Hook Sports at 10 a.m.?
Justin Gatlin the thing is, Usain Bolt wasn't great off the jump. He's just so darn fast and had those long strides. He could give you like a 5-minute head start and he'd still beat you. Like, not 5 minute, like 5-foot head start, but like Justin Gatlin got a huge head start because he was so much better off the jump than Usain Bolt in the 2016 Olympics. And then Usain Bolt was like, all right, I'll just let you get a little ahead. This is kind of cute. And then he goes and beats him at the end.
Caleb was way ahead on something else. And when he said it, I will be honest with you. This is a long time. This is almost a year ago. I said, that's crazy. I thought he had lost his mind, but he was on to something. And yes, Connor Stalions might have undermined the Vols against South Carolina. We got to get to Jourdan Thomas, too. Hang tight with me for 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the 2nd and 3rd generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your pair.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
We'd love for you to join Hooker's Corner. You see the QR code right there on the screen, just $9.98 a month, and you get increased recruiting coverage. You also get an opportunity to win big-time prizes like that John Henderson mini autographed helmet that we gave away, another prize to give away in August. We'll have that announcement thanks to our good friends at Sports Treasures. Increased interaction with me and Caleb as well. Again, brought to you by our friends at Sports Treasures, and we love them. Follow them on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN, Knoxville's oldest card shop, 35 years. We love them. Over 5 million Sports Treasures. I still remember, as one of our posters said, I believe that was Smoky Mountain Red. That's a lot of Sports Treasures. Indeed it is. That is a lot of Sports Treasures. Caleb, you don't ever want anyone to get injured. But there were probably some recruiting fans out there that look at the Jourdan Thomas injury and say, ooh, oh boy, there's a chance to see Boo Carter even quicker, because this rebuilt secondary just threw a rod as Jourdan Thomas suffered a season-ending knee injury. I had him projected as the starter from some conversations I had late in the week with some people last week. Obviously, he's not going to be the starter. Now, what do you think this means for Tennessee's secondary at an experienced player who's been around a while?
Yeah, I think this is actually somewhat devastating. No, I did not have him tabbed as my starter because Jacoby Thomas and Boo Carter I thought would be there, but I was reading reports that Jacoby Thomas would be at cornerback. Jourdan Thomas started playing a lot at safety down the stretch of last season. If you remember, he actually played all 12 games last year during the regular season as a sophomore in 2023. They really liked him. He was your typical, I don't know, like if you want to say like athletic or elite, but kind of your development guy that was a very smart player. Does that make sense? And yes. I think that he was that type of player, which, by the way, that can be very valuable at safety. And so, you know this, Dave. We go back in time. Jonathan Hefney, Rashad Baker, both of them very effective free safeties because they were very smart players, right? And their intelligence outweighed their maybe physical gifts.
Yes. Can I predict something?
Sure.
That I really hope I'm wrong about? I think Boo Carter is going to be the guy that steps in. It's not free safety like Rashad Baker was, but Rashad Baker is still being drugged by Brandon Tofield somewhere in South Baton Rouge. I think that Boo Carter is going to have a couple of moments like that, but I still think his play is going to be overall good. But I think he's going to have a couple of embarrassing moments. I think he's confident enough where it's not going to bother him at all. But some Tennessee fans will get down on him because of those moments that may stand out, Caleb. But you can't see the secondary on TV half the time, so you don't know what he's doing. I think he's still going to be a good player and probably has to play. I had him starting by midseason at strong safety or the star position. I now think he starts first month of the season, if not the beginning of the season, with the Jourdan Thomas injury. So, there are other possibilities. You could go cornerback Christian Charles, but I think he is more of a corner. Temple transfer Jalen McMurray. So they have options.
Who I think is going to be the star nickel. Not star. That's tricky to say, but yeah, nickel.
Right. I do too. But the point is,
Harrison, the son of Rodney Harrison, Christian Harrison. Don't forget him. Another safety.
I'm not forgetting him. I wanted to get to him. Why has he not had a bigger impact?
What if he's just limited athletically? I think he knows the game. You can sometimes just be sometimes you can be not as good as your parents. And I mean, Tennessee during the Butch Jones era, Tennessee had a collective. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, a lot of those kids of elite NFL players, the thing that helps them is they go to college having a deep understanding of the game, right? So they pick things up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And a great example for those who don't remember, during the Butch Jones year, Tennessee had 3 sons of former players in the secondary. They had Todd Kelly Jr., they had Balin Buchanan, the son of Ray Buchanan, and they had Nigel Warrior, the son of Dale Carter, all on the roster together. I was a fan of all of them. I think they were all good guys, good players. Balin Buchanan just got wrecked with some injury issues. I think Nigel Warrior just was a little bit limited in what he could do when he went pro or tried to go pro. And Todd Kelly Jr. also got hit with injuries down the stretch, so he had to give up football. So it was kind of a bad luck situation. And then they all played for Butch Jones, which made it worse. Christian Harrison just kind of gives me those type of vibes. He's a depth guy. I don't think the promise of being elite is what you see with him.
Yeah, I think he's a big-time depth guy, and I think that's why they redshirted him last year. I know he was banged up, but he played in 5 games and then ended up playing in the bowl game. I like what he did his freshman year. He played in 8 games, special teams. I agree with you. I think he's a depth guy, and I think you redshirt him because you keep him perhaps another year. I think he's one of those type of guys, but can he step in and take up the slack for a Jourdan Thomas even? I think that would be asking an awful lot if he hasn't done more to this point in his career.
Yeah, Jourdan Thomas is to Christian Harrison what Ricky Gibson is to Jordan Matthews. Funny enough, where I had my money on, they were all in the same class. And we all had our money on Jordan Matthews and Christian Harrison being the future at cornerback and safety. And then down the stretch of last year, they turned to Ricky Gibson and Jourdan Thomas. And so that was kind of interesting how that all worked out. We didn't have the same insane hype for Jourdan Thomas that we did for Ricky Gibson, to be fair. I'm with you with Boo Carter. Here's the problem with Boo Carter, Dave. Not his fault. Here's why fans are going to get sour fast. Because you brought up Rashad Baker and Jonathan Hefney. We've seen plenty of times in the past Tennessee trot out true freshmen at safety, right? That they turn to. Well, I brought them up, but yeah.
Not plenty, but yes, we've seen a good half dozen, I would say, in the past.
Yes, we have. And I know they did in 98. Didn't they trot out Deion Grant down the stretch in 97 too as a freshman?
I'm sure they did.
I mean, it's such a rare talent. They couldn't keep him off the field.
Yeah, there's no question that they had to play.
Okay, so who's come after all of those guys and the last safety to be a true freshman starter? Who was before Boo Carter? Who was the last hyped up true freshman safety starter? And it's unfair to Boo.
You're not saying the Berry brothers.
No, I'm saying the older Berry brother, Eric Berry, was a true freshman safety starter.
Oh.
And okay. I'm worried that people are going to hold Boo Carter to that standard as a true freshman. Because Eric Berry actually started as a true freshman, and Dave, he never made a freshman mistake.
No, Eric Berry's another player. And getting back to Christian Harrison, would we be saying he's just a good player if he didn't have the lineage? The fact that he did play as a freshman, they redshirted him last year. They obviously want him on the team. They could run anybody they wanted to, but he's one of their best special teams coverage contributors. If he didn't have the last name Harrison, would we be talking about this is your program builder type of guy?
I mean, probably not.
I'm not saying he's unique, though, but this guy's. I think based off looking at his resume, not to interrupt, I think he'll probably start his senior year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think oftentimes, and look, and you can guess this by the parents. Rodney Harrison is a very level-headed, good. Like he's the type of guy you'd want to be your dad, right? Rodney Harrison.
Yes.
I think he's raised his son right to be realistic about this. And I'm going to, most of these kids have
you said hold on, raised his son right.
Let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said he was racist. Go ahead.
No, gosh. No. Most of these kids of athletes who aren't as good as their fathers, if the athlete was a good dad and you trusted him as a level-headed person, they are going to be self-aware that maybe they don't have a career in this, so they're playing football for fun and they're preparing for something else. Michael Munoz was very aware that he wasn't as good as his father, right? And was very level-headed. His father raised him right. This is what I think derailed Now, it's not his fault because I think he did have NFL potential if it wasn't for being hurt. But I don't think Gerald Riggs Jr. took too well that he wasn't going to be as good as his father in the NFL.
Well, his father, I believe, is one of the most underrated running backs of all time.
And Gerald Riggs remember, after the 2004 season, we all thought Gerald Riggs was an NFL prospect, right? And then he got hurt in 2005. And I guess you may know more, but did that injury was he not able to come back from that for the pros?
I really haven't talked to Gerald about why it didn't work out in the NFL for a longer period of time. I don't know. I would be speaking out of turn. I know that I thought they had a really good set of tailbacks there in Cedric Houston as well. And sometimes you have great college tailbacks and they don't end up having success in the NFL.
But Riggs was on that 04 team where they both ran for 1,000 yards. Riggs was the better running back that year. Cedric Houston was good, but Riggs was the better runner with the ball in his hands. At least I thought.
What if they were 100% healthy?
That was the year they both were 100% healthy.
Okay.
And Riggs was better. Because that's when Jabari Davis, loved the guy, have a lot of respect for him. But remember, he kind of got relegated into you're not going to carry the ball that much anymore.
Yeah, I'll take Riggs as a better runner. Quality Tire Pro, the Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. You just go to Cherokee Boulevard or online at qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Tell them that Dave Hooker said hello. Off the Hook Sports said hello. We appreciate Quality Tire Pros. They service my cars. They should service yours. Caleb, Connor Stalions, the scandal is getting worse. Now, give me a 15-second for those that have never heard his name, what he allegedly did.
So for those who forgot, and this is why Jim Harbaugh got suspended a second time last year, Connor Stalions basically was accused of sign stealing. He was going to games of other teams and stealing their signs and basically sounded like videotaping them and taking them down and giving them to Michigan. And it happened, and it lined up when it started to allegedly happen. It lined up right when Michigan started winning the Big Ten every year. A report from ESPN makes it a little bit worse. Connor Stalions, for those who don't know, he got fired at the end of last year. Jim Harbaugh got suspended. Michigan still won the national title. All credit to him. But this has been a cloud hanging over their head. They've been under investigation for this since. Now, according to a report from ESPN, new Michigan head coach Jourdan Thomas, who took over as offensive coordinator in 2021, is accused of deleting 52 text messages to Stalions the same day he was revealed to be the leader of the scheme to decipher other teams' play calls via advanced scouting. Now,
one, that was the longest 15 seconds of my life. Two, I want to ask you two questions. I want to discuss two things. One, is this good for Tennessee? Because there's not another national champion in the mix, in my opinion. Michigan's done. Jourdan Thomas done. They're going to get hit with penalties. Done. It's going to be worse than that. Done. Harbaugh left and is gone. And the other question I want to ask you is if you can explain to us why you think that Connor Stalions was somehow responsible for Tennessee's loss to South Carolina in 2022. When you first said that, Caleb, I'll be honest with you, I thought that was the craziest thing that I'd ever heard. But since then, people have fallen in line with you, and I'm actually somewhat in line with you. I still am a little on the conspiracy side, but explain what you think happened.
Okay, so for the first one, I do think it's good for Tennessee, but I don't think it's as much of an impact on Tennessee. I think Ohio State falling would be a bigger impact on Tennessee because I don't think Tennessee and Michigan compete for similar prospects. Tennessee and Ohio State do. So
it's not like Florida just all out sucking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tennessee won the national title the year after Michigan won the national title in 97, 98. It doesn't hurt Tennessee for Michigan to be good or bad. That has no impact on them, really. As far as how this affected Tennessee,
it would be nice. I would say this. There were three programs that had elite coaches. Kirby Smart, Kirby Smart, Georgia, Alabama, Nick Saban, Harbaugh, Michigan. Two of those are gone. So when you're matching up teams in the playoffs, I think you feel better about your chances when you're not going against a program that has arrived already and has a great coach.
That is very true. That is a good point. That's fair. Here's why it affects Tennessee. According to the report that came last year, guys, in October of 2022, Connor Stalions bought tickets to a Clemson home game and a Tennessee home game. The Tennessee home game we found out was Kentucky, which was October the 25th. Tennessee went to play South Carolina, would have been, I guess, 3 weeks later. And in the most baffling loss I think I've ever witnessed from Tennessee, they just got blown out. Now, yes, there was a Hendon Hooker injury. Now, crazy enough, Dave, I think if Hendon Hooker stays healthy, even down 18 points, there's a chance they come back and win that game in the fourth quarter.
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, but it was baffling. South Carolina was left for dead, guys. We had Shane Beamer fired. Dave and I were on the show. Jonathan Crompton even came on the show. I remember it distinctly on a Friday, and we were like, so, like, do they fire Shane Beamer at the end of the year, or do they just fire him now? Like, that's how it was.
Okay, I'm going to play ignorant devil's advocate because I want to make sure that the listeners and viewers are 100% up to speed. Okay, it may have helped South Carolina against Tennessee, but how did it help South Carolina against Clemson? How do we know that South Carolina team didn't just get hot and they didn't play well and they figured out how to use Spencer Rattler? So I'm going to be the other guy. I'm going to be the South Carolina fan who says, Caleb, what are you talking about? You're not giving them credit for winning those games. Those were big-time wins.
The same month that Connor Stalions attended a Tennessee home game, he attended his Clemson home game. And the week after Tennessee, South Carolina went and beat Clemson. Look at Shane Beamer's resume, guys. And I'm just going to, I could just pull it up. He's been South Carolina head coach for 3 years now. Guys, tell me a quality team he's beaten outside of those 2 weeks in those random 2 weeks in November. His best win his first year was Auburn. And then he hasn't beaten a ranked team outside of those 2 weeks. And those were 2 college football playoff teams. Okay, now I'll be fair. He did beat Kentucky on the road that same year, October the 8th, 24-14 when they were ranked. But Dave, Kentucky's always ranked in early October. We find out they're not that good at the end of the year, right? That's how that always happens.
Pretty much.
Yes. You don't have Shane Beamer's record. And then in a random November, in the middle of a 3-year run, you beat 2 college football playoff teams, one on the road and one in a blowout. Okay, that does not happen. What we know is that, and people are asking me, well, Caleb, why does it matter? You know, why would Michigan exchange that information for South Carolina? Why would they care if Tennessee or Clemson were in the playoff? Here's what we know. Michigan was trying to maximize its chances and I'll tell you what the incentive would be. Michigan did beat Ohio State that year. Ohio State still got into the playoff, remember? 2022?
Yes.
Michigan was trying to maximize its chances of eliminating all college football playoff competition. So in case they lost, those teams wouldn't jump ahead of them. And that was what they were doing. And it ended up having no impact because Michigan beat Ohio State. But here's the crazy thing. According to more rumors and reports, and this is not confirmed, but remember when we were baffled on how TCU beat Michigan because we knew Michigan was so much better and Georgia blew out Michigan right after that?
Somewhat. I mean, I wasn't baffled, but I thought Michigan would win easier.
According to some sources, TCU knew about the sign stealing scandal. They found out about it, and they changed all of their signals the week of the game. Every single one of them.
I have no doubt that happened.
Yeah.
Because, coaches talk, and to think that you're going to go, 3 weeks in between the last game or the conference championship weekend and playoffs? Somebody's going to talk. I mean, you're going to know that. And TCU is going to change all their signs and use dummy signs, so maybe that did help them.
Yeah, it absolutely helped them. Yeah, and that's how I think they won that day. Now,
I would sign stealing. You don't ultimately win if you do it as blatantly as Connor Stalions. Here, I'm here to tell you. There's somebody on Josh Heupel's staff trying to steal signs.
Everybody tries to do it.
Yeah, but when you dress up and who was the manager? But Bobby, the manager of the Mets who dressed up with a fake mustache.
Bobby Valentine.
Yes, When you try to do stuff like that, that's when it makes you look stupid, and that's when things come out about this. Now, TCU did end up drilling Michigan. Derek want to ask what's the
But that's our point there. TCU got word of Michigan sign stealing, so they flipped all their signals.
Yes. So in other words, when you say Omaha, 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 for instance, and TCU had their own signals, Omaha would mean go to the freeze play, which is what they called it at Tennessee. Freeze play meant they went to the play and went to the line of scrimmage. And everybody does this now, but they didn't back then. And you call 2 plays. And Omaha would signal to the freeze play the second play. So they were doing that. I'm sure TCU was and audibly, but their signal would have signaled the opposite of what Michigan thought.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. Now,
I still think Michigan was, and they didn't drill TCU. I still think Michigan was the better team.
Now, let's break this down real quick. Let's be fair here. This is a partial indictment of Josh Heupel. Because, Dave, here's the truth of the matter. Deion Sanders said it. You still got to execute the play, right? If football's not like, even Deion said, it's different from football to baseball, where if you know what pitch you're being thrown, that is cheating, right? If you get it, if you're like the Astros and you know what pitch you're being thrown, that's a total difference, right? In baseball. Yes. Whereas in football, you've got to execute the play. It's an indictment against Josh Heupel that he didn't switch up what he was doing or adjust at all to the South Carolina game. And this has been a problem with Josh Heupel for a while, is he doesn't adjust in game that much. And
my question is in-game adjustment, but let's face it, when Hendon Hooker went down, that was over.
Right, but they didn't adjust the defense at all from the first half to the second half. And
I think the defense, they just had issues. And one is because their best player acted like a jackwagon 2 days before the game.
That's possible too.
I mean, I think the defense was in total. Now, people said the defense quit because they were mad and they want to stand up for Jeremy Banks. I don't believe that at all. I just believe that they were in disarray without having their best guy.
You've been on a team, Dave. I've been on a team. Sometimes when you see 2 players fight, even if you are against the player who did the fighting and he's dismissed, it mentally wrecks you for a game, doesn't it? Like it tears you apart.
Portions of the program brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. I want you to finish that thought. Give me 15 seconds.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Caleb, you were going to say, sir?
I was just saying that it wrecks a team sometimes when a fight breaks out. But I do think that, yes, it's too suspicious. The Connor Stalions sign stealing scandal affected Tennessee in 2022. But before we finish this thought, Dave, this is the craziest thing I'm going to say. I don't think Michigan should be punished that hard for it because I think the rule's stupid anyway.
I think they should be hammered. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, the Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. And I remind you that they also bring you Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. That means that if you're a subscriber to this challenge and a free member of Hooker's Corner, and I'll put that QR back up on the page so you can join Hooker's Corner. If you're a free member of both, then you can win a Garmin thanks to Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. All you have to do is be a free member on Hooker's Corner, subscribe to Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel, and when we get to 8,000, we're drawing for a lucky listener to win that Garmin watch worth over $1,000. So please sign up now. And if you haven't hit like and subscribe, do that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones ready to go to trial for you. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. All right. Stat of the day. What do we got there, Caleb Calhoun? The stat of the day is brought to you by our good friends at Apex Apparel Group Design.
Send a shout out to the late great Jimmy Streeter.
Okay, good.
Who was, maybe you might say, the Hendon Hooker for Johnny Majors, the guy that got the program rolling for Johnny Majors. In 1979, Jimmy Streeter threw what was at the time the longest pass play in Tennessee history. And I'm saying this, today's August the 5th, 8-5. Jimmy Streeter threw an 85-yard touchdown pass to Anthony Hancock against Vanderbilt. That 79, and it was for a touchdown. Tennessee won that game 31-10. The 79 team, Dave, is the most inconsistent team in the history of Tennessee football. It was the first bowl team.
Wait. The 89 team went 0-6 and then 5-6, right?
Yes, but the 88 team went 0-6 because they played a bunch of good teams and finished strong because they played a bunch of bad teams. Okay, that's like remember in 2010? Remember 2010? You were covering the team. The 2010 Tennessee team starts 2-6 and finishes 6-6, and Derek Drew was like, "Oh, we had a great turnaround there." I'm like, no, you didn't. You just played a bunch of terrible teams.
As bad as things got during this decade of dysfunction, they never got to the point where Tennessee's coaches just decided they were going to redo their entire philosophy on one side of the ball. That's what they did in the middle of the 89 season when they started 0-6. 88. They started in a 3-4 and went to a 4-3. Can you imagine if Tim Banks came out and said, we're going to forgo our usual attacking style and we're going to play more soft coverage? Or if Josh Heupel said, we're going to turn into an option team. We're going to completely change our philosophy. Can you imagine that?
That'd be insane. It'd be so hilariously insane. And by the way, I know they did that. They basically forced out Ken Donahue, for those who don't know, who was the defensive coordinator. And he was kind of a Bear Bryant disciple. And they realized that his style was way outdated by the time 89 came. But 79, all right, Dave, I just got to point out the 79 team real quick because you're going to love it. You're going to love this. Tennessee was 7-4 in the regular season. They were in the top 25. They played 4 games as a top 25 team. Those are the only 4 games they lost. Whenever they were a top 25 team, they lost. You ready for this stat? They go and on November the 3rd, while ranked number 17, they lost to Rutgers at home 13-7. The next week, while unranked, they beat Notre Dame 40-18. The next week, while back in the top 25, they lose to a bad Ole Miss team 44-20. What? How do you do that?
That's tough to do. That's a bit of a challenge. I tell you what's also a challenge: getting along with your teammates in one particular school, and why the locker room is being called Grand Theft Auto, which, if you don't know, is a video game about every single crime that you could possibly imagine. Why Tennessee needs to go after this school in recruiting, because they're having a complete meltdown. As we kind of saw it coming, didn't we? Apex Apparel Group Design brings you the TriStar hats. Apex Apparel can do so much more than just the TriStar hats. A one-stop shop for your brand supply products, not just clothes, design, brand, and market your way. Unique products to promote your business. Call Tyler right down below, 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Also, I want to remind you, with the TriStar hats, use the promo code HOOK. That link is right below as well. Go to tristarhatsco.com, tristarhatsco.com for your hat. And it's right there. They've got the American hat, the Tennessee hat. They've got them all. Check them out. Stay tuned. The Vols, next recruiting target right here. Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Do you like it when I admit I'm wrong? Because I'm about to do so. Caleb, you admit you're wrong, right? You're not afraid to do that.
Yes, but it's really, really hard to find times when I'm wrong. So
exactly. So
the great saying just before you start, there's a great saying on this because it was about Cam Newton and how he handled the Super Bowl loss, remember? And how he needed to handle it better. And
Yes.
someone brought up like, well, how will Michael Jordan have handled it? And then another person said, oh my, it's not like Michael Jordan never really lost after he became a champion. So it's like, it's really hard to know how he would have handled it. So
that's a fair point. All right. So I thought that Deion Sanders would make a good coach because he had done so at the black college level. And I thought NIL would help him. I thought he's also very affable and would relate to the players. I'm wondering if he's gotten himself in way over his head and what Tennessee can do to perhaps take advantage of that. Here's some of the things you're not going to believe this is going on at the University of Colorado. So some players maybe not suited for prime time. Now, this coming according to Athlon Sports. One former player said it's like a real life Grand Theft Auto video game. There are many distractions with fights, guns, and money floating around. The environment is unlike any I've come from before. Wow, that is pretty big to say it's like Grand Theft Auto. I won't even play Grand Theft Auto in front of my son, and he's 20 years old. Guns and gambling and all this stuff going on. There's more talk. The former player said that five-star talent Cormani McClain was taking a lot of heat from everyone. At the same time, Coach Prime was saying he was in the doghouse and needed to improve. Cormani was getting bullied by Shiloh Sanders, who is Deion's son. After the Oregon State game, Shiloh slapped him several times, which left Cormani screaming, "I'm going to kill you," repeatedly. After that, you could tell he wasn't mentally there. It's hard when the coaches you trust are calling you derogatory names on the practice field. Butch Jones. My goodness. This tells me that not only are things bad at the University of Colorado, they're about to get a lot worse because you don't write something like this unless you're pretty sure the coach is going to get fired because you have to work with him, Caleb. This is groundbreaking stuff for a major program. This does not happen.
And it gets even deeper, by the way, because Jordan Seaton, who guys, I don't know if you guys remember, Tennessee thought they were going to land him, and then he went to Colorado last year, and then he played the race card. You should go play for a coach who looks like you. By the way, it's not like he committed to Maryland, who has a black coach, or it's not like he committed. There's a bunch of other schools with black coaches he could have committed to, by the way. So the idea that this was about wanting to promote a black coach was such a lie from him. But whatever, he was a 17-year-old. He's getting bullied now, apparently, and it's gotten really bad. Another one is that the son of Robert Mathis and quarterback Colton Allen got into a fight after apparently it sounds like Mathis refused to pay a $10,000 gambling debt to.
I know. I left that. I specifically left that one for you because I knew you'd like that one.
Oh, exactly. I love that one. And then
For
there's
goodness
also
sake, I mean,
$10,000. Where's this money coming from?
Well, it's coming from NIL, and you know this, but I mean, and people are referring to Georgia 23 or 31 arrests since the beginning of the year, whatever the case may have been. But my question is, what's more disconcerting? What's happening at Georgia or what's happening at Colorado? I mean, I've been very critical of Georgia, but the Colorado thing sounds like it's 10 times worse to me.
And then the worst is obviously the Colorado player who flashed a Glock 40 on his Instagram story on his IG Live after he committed, which is crazy. So it's Colorado. And here's why it's Colorado. Georgia has a problem with, to their credit, they did dismiss that Jourdan Thomas. You get a couple of players arrested for really serious crimes, that there's no program that can stop that. Is that fair to say, Dave?
Yes.
Georgia has a problem with an extremely high amount of players committing very, very minor crimes that I think it's just a luck of the draw that a lot of people are just getting caught being stupid because it's stuff that, for the most part, now again, Jordan Davis and the Jourdan Thomas incident notwithstanding, it's stuff that for the most part is no stupider than most 18 to 20-year-olds do. Is that fair to say? You and I did stuff as stupid as every one of those Georgia arrests during that time. In the road. I mean, drag when no one's around. I'm not saying that's what we did, but we did stuff on that level of stupid.
Okay, I did stupid stuff. I'll agree with that. We'll just let it lay there.
What we did there's a difference between that type of criminal activity and what was, for instance, going on at Florida under Urban Meyer, where people are telling their girlfriends they deserve to die. They're out here committing double murders for fun.
But how far is the University of Colorado from being that, Caleb?
So Colorado is different to me because it's not the off the field legal issues. It's the culture within the program of the treatment of players. And it makes me wonder what's going on. And I'm starting to wonder if Deion's lying about being at Colorado for the long term. And Dave, I got a question for you.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I think he's lying too.
And I didn't think so before, but I do now.
Here's my theory. And I got a theory on this. Deion got into head coaching, and Deion is doing what he's doing to facilitate his kids going to the pros and doing what's best for them. And I saw this last year, by the way, okay? There were a couple of moments where Colorado, when they were still the hot team in September, going into October, I think it was Stanford they played. There was like a 4th and 1 or something like that. Colorado's up like 27-0. You punt the ball. Deion called some sort of trick play to try to get Shedeur Sanders another passing touchdown. He was trying to get his son to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Deion is, this is my theory. Now, I don't know if you guys think this is good parenting or not, but Deion is using coaching as a vessel to maximize his kids' NFL potential.
I mean, to me, that's not the relationship I have with my son. I respect what he does. He respects what I do. We don't do it together all the time. I mean, he helps. I would, if you're asking me as a father, and you'll have to make this decision one day, there is the right time for space.
I agree. But this is this is what people are doing. Now, again, some people can do it the way LeBron did. Leverage, I want my son playing with me. You can blame LeBron and the Lakers all you want. I mean, that is kind of cool. I can't blame LeBron, even if Bronny's not ready for the NBA. I can't blame him for doing that. Like, he wants to play with his son. Deion is literally sacrificing. Like, I don't even think he cares if he gets fired. If he gets Shedeur to be a number 1 draft pick, and if he gets Shiloh to the NFL, then
here's where you're right, and it's over. The debate in your head or the discussion we should have should be over, because once this comes out, you're not getting the Southern California job, you're not getting the Florida job, which could come open, and he had been talked about for that. So if he doesn't get one of those jobs, what's he going to do? Hang out at Colorado without his 2 sons and his other superstar player and lose a bunch of games? No. He's going to end up doing something else. And
Exactly.
I don't know what that something else is, but it might be returning to coach at a smaller level at the black universities, and there'd be nothing wrong with that.
I don't even think here's the reason he was successful, though. And I said this when he was successful at Jackson State, the HBCU. He was getting 5-star recruits to go to Jackson State. Well, if you're getting 5-star recruits and you're at Jackson State, you're going to beat everybody else, right? So that's just how that goes. Deion, now I'm going to pose this to you, Dave, because you may know more than me about this. Let's call it what it is.
Women?
Women? Okay, sorry.
You said you may know more about this. Go ahead.
Deion had success in the pros, won back-to-back Super Bowls in 94, 95. We know the culture of the 95 Cowboys. We don't need to go into that.
Yes.
From what you have told me, from what I have heard, it ain't like the 49ers culture was that much better when Deion was there in 94. It ain't like they didn't have shenanigans going on too in San Fran, a lot of them. And the reason I bring that up, do you think
everybody's always said Deion's a great practice player and a great teammate?
Well, no, here's what I'm trying to get to. Do you think Deion, and I'm steelmaning Deion here, do you think because of the Super Bowl he won in San Francisco, he won a Super Bowl in San Francisco, won a Super Bowl in Dallas, he saw how those two teams operated. Do you think seeing how those two teams operated and winning championships with them leads him to believe that this is the right approach to winning at Colorado?
Yes. I don't think there's any question that he, as a player and that Cowboys team he played for, he says to himself, guys can be wild and still play. The thing was, he wasn't wild. And he was very good. So it surprises me that he's okay with other people being wild on his team. And for anybody that doesn't think that story's true, that's on Athlon Sports, guys. I mean,
we're not making this up. Now, there are a lot of anonymous players, and players can have access to grind, but there's a lot of stuff that we've seen leak out beyond the anonymous stuff. I mean, Deion getting into Twitter wars with random college football athletes is pretty pathetic, and he's been doing
okay.
that.
Now let me ask you this: do you have a problem with these guys being anonymous sources? Why can't they use their name?
That is, I never bluntly say I have a problem with anonymous sources because it depends on the context of why they're anonymous, and so I can't just bluntly say it. But there are some things out there that, like, it's out there that a player committed flashing his gun. Okay, so it's out there that Deion trashed the performance of a college athlete at another school. He did that on Twitter. No one does that. So, I mean, that was the thing that made me root against him was I'm like, you don't trash other athletes. That's just Bush League. That's the most Bush League thing I've ever seen anybody do. And so, in head coaching. And so thinking all of that, the reason I'm getting to your point of like the wildness is Deion may not be wild. He may not be encouraging wildness, but maybe he encourages a chaotic culture because maybe he believes the chaotic culture is what toughens players up and leads to winning championships. Because again,
I don't think it's that as much as I think he expects them to be pros, and they're not pros.
Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. But
or we could both be right in a little bit of both.
Do you think that Atlanta was this way when Deion was playing for the Falcons?
Probably, yeah. They had Andre Ware. Andre Rison. They were pretty wild.
Okay. Maybe I don't know that. And I am right in suggesting the San Francisco 49ers were almost as wild as the Cowboys, right?
Man, as much as I'd say it was a pretty wild Cowboys team. I mean, when you've got a house that houses cocaine and prostitutes within eye shot of the practice field, that's pretty bad.
No, but I mean, I don't mean they're on the Cowboys level, but you would say relative to average, the 49ers were a wild team, right?
Yes. But professional, way more than the Cowboys. Hey, let me steal, man. I'm learning that means make your argument stronger, right?
Yes, because so
I'm going to make your argument stronger. Deion doesn't give a rat's toot about the 2025 class. Colorado has 7 commitments, and they're ranked 81st in the nation.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's going to try to win this year and go pick up more transfers in the portal. I'm trying to think of a team that had success at this in the pro level, but a team that's just like, screw it, let's just go sign a bunch of free agents and go win a title. Like,
Gotta be. Seems like it happens in the NBA every year. 2 minutes, and while Al Wilson visiting with the Vols was monstrous over the weekend, I'll tell you about it. Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX 45,985. 24 Ford Escape 30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT 32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
With the one, the only Caleb Calhoun, the guy that told you back in 2005 that Connor Stalions was a no-good rapscallion. That was a little early. It wasn't quite 2005. All right, let me ask you this question. And Caleb, for some reason, you're named Dave Hooker on the screen. I don't think you're really Dave Hooker. Let's get you fixed.
I'll change it.
All right. Caleb, let me ask you a question. The most beloved Vol of all time is whom?
Football speaking, right? Just football?
Yes, football. And I want your suggestions from the message board, as I'm going to make that a poll question. I hadn't exactly thought of that, but here we go.
I think it is Peyton Manning. I mean, I think it's Peyton Manning.
Okay.
Not my most beloved Vol, but I think the most beloved.
What is your most beloved Vol?
Yeah, mine is. I hate to go here because I know where you're leading with this, but mine is Al Wilson.
Okay. Why Al Wilson?
Because Al Wilson was the leader that Tennessee needed in 1998. And not only was he a leader, but he stepped up in the big moments. And to this day, 25 years later, still had the greatest defensive performance in a single game in the history of Tennessee football.
Okay. We got some votes for Johnny Majors and Peyton Manning. So right now, the choices are... Oh, I like that, Derek. So here's what I'm going to do. The choices are, what is your favorite Vol of all time? So I'm going to put General Neyland on there, along with Johnny Majors, Peyton Manning, and Al Wilson. So go ahead and vote. We would love to see what you have to say. Al Wilson talks to the Vols, and one person in particular, who happens to be from Smyrna, took umbrage in what the former Tennessee linebacker from Jackson had to say. And that was one Arian Carter said it was great to meet Al Wilson, said it was huge. He was like a legend. That was very refreshing to me, Caleb, because I sometimes wonder if players that see older players think, no big deal. But he was genuinely taken aback, and I thought that was pretty strong. I want to talk more about Arian Carter, but first.
Well, Dave, let's just correct something real quick. So he didn't take umbrage with. I'm sorry to be the grammar police, but you have me thinking that he was upset by Al Wilson.
Oh, okay. I missed umbraged. I'm umbraged with myself. Go ahead.
Take umbrage means to be upset or offended by.
Okay, sorry.
So you had another breaking news story dropping right there. Like, oh my gosh, Tennessee linebacker upset with Al Wilson.
No. Sorry. I used the wrong word. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll let you finish. That's all. I knew you were diving into.
No, just what is your favorite Vol of all time right now? Al Wilson, Peyton Manning, Johnny Majors, General Neyland. So Al Wilson, 44% of the vote, 38% of the vote. Johnny Majors, 12% of the vote. General Neyland gets 6% of the vote. Let's talk about Tennessee's linebackers for a second. Can you expect any of them to be even close to Al Wilson, the player? Not everything, not the leader, but the player. Can you get that kind of production from either a Keenan Pili, who would play Mike, he would be the natural one to point to because that's what Al played, or Arian Carter, who would play outside, who's going to be more of a havoc guy. Al created havoc, but he played between the tackles too. Caleb, can either one of these guys approach that?
No. Al Wilson, if Al Wilson didn't have a neck injury, would have been a Hall of Fame linebacker in the NFL. Dave, not counting Peyton Manning, you can call me crazy on this. Not counting Peyton Manning, if I have a draft tomorrow and I have to use my first pick on a former Tennessee player, I'm taking Al Wilson.
Wow.
Who else would you? Maybe Reggie White, but Al Wilson. If it was not for Ray Lewis being in the same conference as him, he'd have been the best linebacker in the NFL. Dude was a 5-time Pro Bowler in 9 years.
Well, you're sharing some stuff with me that I didn't know because I was in the midst of, covering recruiting and all that stuff. My Sundays were spent calling 17-year-old kids. So no, I didn't know he was that good. I knew he was very, very good. I didn't know you had him that high, and I respect your opinion.
Hall of Fame caliber player, if it not for the neck injury.
I think a lot of people have him painted as a great leader who was a good player.
Yeah, that's just not factually borne out. And if you could say this, you could maybe say in the 98 season, his leadership propelled him to All-American status because he missed some games in 98 because of an injury.
He was hurt against Auburn. Yes,
he was. But he had the greatest performance in history by a defender in Tennessee football history. You will never, ever, ever again see somebody do what he did against Florida in 98. That was incredible.
Talking about Tennessee's linebackers, here's how Keenan Pili's different. He's a little bit bigger. I think he's going to be more of a tackle guy. I don't like his lateral nearly as much as Al Wilson, but I think he'll be fine between the tackles, maybe as good as Al Wilson, although I would take Al Wilson stripping the ball from anybody over any other defender that I've ever seen. And as far as Arian Carter, don't compare those two. I would tell you as a Tennessee fan, compare him and let's say Raynoch Thompson, a guy who flies around with reckless abandon, that type of player. Compare him to him because Arian Carter is not a between the tackles type of linebacker.
No, not at all. Not at all. And remember this, guys. This was actually how Tennessee finally figured out Florida and Spurrier's offense. And you know this, Dave. 98, Al Wilson was an outside linebacker for most of his career. He chose to come back for his senior season for 98 to help his NFL draft stock, and the coaches threw a curveball at him and moved him to middle linebacker. One of the best things ever done, right? Was moving to Al Wilson to middle linebacker.
No question.
That was the first time they really went for speed over size at middle linebacker. And Al Wilson was a massive problem for Florida that year with the not just the fumbles. Al Wilson, you just brought it up. One of his forced fumbles was deep in the secondary on a first down catch. The guy, he had a first down forced fumble. He had a sack forced fumble. And then he stripped, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name, the running back for Florida, Terry Jackson, was that his name? That he stripped on the goal line. Al Wilson forced a fumble 3 different ways and then called his own audible and went on a blitz to Go back and look at on a second down play in overtime with Florida. Florida could go for the win with the touchdown. The touchdown is there. The receiver's there. But Al Wilson bursts through the line and knocks, I think, Doug Johnson on his back before he can get rid of the ball.
Yep.
Or before he can throw it down. I mean, Al Wilson, I think you're right. His leadership, it's almost unfortunate. His leadership overtakes his greatness. Because Al Wilson is one of the, take the leadership aside, there's not a linebacker in Tennessee history that's close to Al Wilson in terms of greatness. And there are very few players that are as close to Al Wilson in terms of greatness. He is on the level of Reggie White and on the level of Peyton Manning in terms of great Tennessee players at their positions. People talk more about Deion Grant, the free safety, during that time because of his interceptions. Sean Ellis. There is nobody I'm taking over Al Wilson. This is why, Dave, this is why I push back on you and Fred. The 99 team was not better than the 98 team because the 99 team didn't have Al Wilson.
Fair. I heard a rumor from a source that there's a hard push to get Deion Grant in the College Football Hall of Fame.
How's he not?
It's really difficult to get in that one. That's the most difficult one. Al just got in like last year.
That is true. He did just get in.
It is incredibly hard. Unlike the Basketball Hall of Fame takes into account college, it's much easier to get into. But I mean, nobody works like Al Wilson, except for maybe work trucks. They're all about trucks that actually are available, like Al was, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. You can't do those back and forth. They're intent on making sure you have what the dealerships can't get you right now. Work Truck saves you time. The process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle from Work Trucks. They've got the Napide work bodies installed. Pickup trucks, they can do dump trucks, cranes as well. No dealership runaround. Work Trucks, downtown Birmingham. Work Trucks with an X, downtown Birmingham, and on Clinton Highway in Knoxville. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Check them out online. You can order your truck online and have it delivered. Work Trucks, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols, and we certainly thank Work Trucks for their support. Caleb, that being said, you and I were one of the first, and we ended up looking wrong, and that's fine, but we weren't wrong. One of the first to say Aaron Carter is going to be a superstar. We just didn't know that he had gotten hurt at the time. He is going to be a very, very good player. I'm not going to say he's quite on the level of a James Banks, but he's a level just down below that.
Yes, I agree. Aaron Carter is exactly what we're expecting. He was the hype player last year that Boo Carter is this year, but he's got a year of experience under his belt because he was able to sit behind Aaron Beasley and kind of learn the ropes. Aaron Carter is going to be the breakout player. The hype behind him reminds me of the hype behind. What about this comparison? Because Raynoch Thompson goes way far back. What about Rico McCoy?
I think Aaron Carter will be better than Rico McCoy, but I think it's a good comparison.
Okay, so a better version of Rico McCoy. I could get down with that. Maybe even another one, fully healthy Kevin Simon.
More of a middle guy than Carter, who I think of as more of an outside guy. You?
Okay. Well, I'm thinking younger Kevin Simon when Kevin Burnett played in the middle.
Yeah, that was possible. It seemed like they had a lot of outside linebackers that first year. Burnett was more of an outside guy, I thought, naturally. Anyway, all right. So Tennessee picks up a monstrous commitment, the 2026 class. So we're projecting way, way ahead here. But talk about we started the show with it. We wanted to wrap with it and talk about what Tennessee has picked up in Faizon, which is a very good quarterback.
So Tennessee, I think, got a very good, and this is how Faizon Brandon strikes me. Doesn't have the type of deep ball that you would see with the Nico Iamaleava or even a Hendon Hooker for that matter, but has very, very, very good red zone accuracy, which is the most underrated trait in football right now, Dave, because as you know, because coaches aren't focused on accuracy among quarterbacks as much anymore, red zone play has tanked in the NFL and college. The quality of red zone play has been horrible. Faizon Brandon,
not on the defensive side.
Yeah, that's true. Not on the defensive side. So if Faizon Brandon were to start for Tennessee if he were to win the job over George McIntyre, and if he were in the future, and if he were able to move the ball and still have the same offense, you would see Tennessee win a lot of games because they were scoring more touchdowns and field goals relative to other teams. And that could, this day, that can be a huge difference in the course of a season. And so I think that's Faizon Brandon's biggest strength. Now, the issue is, and you have to question this with competition, while he's accurate, he throws a lot of floaters, and those work in the high school game. Even if you can split double coverage with them, guys are just too slow and don't react to the ball that well. But if you hang the ball like that in college or in the SEC, that's going to be intercepted. And I think so. The biggest thing that Faizon's got to do is somehow maintain his accuracy while being able to put more zip on the ball when he makes those throws. That's going to be tough.
Here's the biggest factor about Faizon's commitment to me, because commitments these far out sometimes don't stick. It's the fact that I think Tennessee has a huge foothold. They already had a foothold with Hendon Hooker being from North Carolina, but they have a monstrous foothold now with Faizon, which could turn into Sanders, the offensive lineman. And I think now you start to go after the Carolinas big time, just like when South Carolina had Brad Scott and North Carolina had Carl Torbush or whoever they have. Right now, South Carolina is sitting at 30th with 19 commitments. North Carolina is even lower than that. I think that both coaches could eventually be on the hot seat. Talking about Mac Brown and Shane Beamer definitely is. This is the time. This is the time to rule Carolina. I would argue that it is as penetrable, if that's a word, as it ever was under Philip Fulmer. This is the time to get into the Carolinas and make hay there.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, North Carolina, we all see has a ceiling now. Mac Brown has been there for 5 years, and his best season is 9-5. And Mac Brown was basically like Philip Fulmer being a new head coach somewhere else, which is like you might get some success, but like the idea is his resume at Texas is exactly the same as Fulmer's at Tennessee, isn't it? They're like identical to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can recruit against that by saying there's a ceiling and he's 72. He may not be there that long. So you can recruit against North Carolina. NC State, Wake Forest, and Duke, we don't really have to talk about. And the South Carolina, Shane Beamer's in deep, deep, deep trouble. This counter Stalion stuff's only going to make him look worse. And you're right, Clemson, not only are they faltering under Dabo Swinney, but Dave, they're stuck in the ACC. And don't think for a second that that's not a factor anymore in college football with the conferences changing. So Carolinas are ripe for the pickings. And we always talk about Georgia. Guys, South Carolina had a way bigger impact on the 98 national title team than Georgia did. And it's true. And the North Carolina was a factor too. Sean Bryson, one of the most underrated players, huge deal. Funny, I just have to point this out, Dave. You named Carl Torbush. I don't know if you know this. When ETSU was restarting its football program in 2018 or whatever, they were naming Fulmer an advisor, and he pushed them to hire Carl Torbush.
Not the best hire. You mentioned Clemson. They had 15 commitments. From a recruiting perspective, at 12th in the country, that's pretty good. I mean, for them, we'll see what they do without Brent Venables long term, but that's pretty good, and they could get even higher. But my question is, we have seen Clemson be great, we've seen Tennessee be great, but not at the same time. For whatever reason, whether it's the orange or whatever it is, these two teams tend to battle for prospects. So how key is it for Tennessee to top Clemson in recruiting?
It's quite honestly, it's crucial. But the biggest reason it's crucial is because Georgia is rolling. I've always said that Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, and Clemson, there's room for one of them to be good when Tennessee's trying to be good. But there's not room for all three of them to be good, right? You can't have all three of them be rolling. And that was the problem in the decade of dysfunction. People want to talk about the decade of dysfunction, but Georgia was, whatever you think of Mark Richt, they were competing for national titles under him. South Carolina was at its best ever under Steve Spurrier, and Clemson was on the rise under Dabo Swinney. There was nowhere for Tennessee to go to recruit, and they didn't have NIL to be able to try to get players. I don't care if Vince Lombardi was coaching Tennessee during that time. They probably wouldn't have been able to do that well.
Yep. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. A huge show on tap. If you're just tuning in, go back and listen to it because it was just awesome. Just brought the heat. That's what we do. Weekdays at 10 a.m. for Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off